Hello Internet! In this video we are going to be working with some custom Minecraft plugins. Specifically we're working with Spigot here, which is a framework on top of Minecraft for presenting just a little bit nicer API for developing these kind of things. So what I want to get done today is I want to add a custom command. So we can type /clone world or something similar, and it should do that. Right now, you can kind of see in the logs down in the bottom here. Whoop, what am I doing? There we go. We have this RuneWake 2 issued server command clone world, and nothing else happened. We are running our plugin though, so we do have these two lines. My plugin is nicely called blank plugin. A lot of this is still a work in progress, and I'm not going to go super in depth into how I'm actually running this. It's this janky setup that I have that I think is going to be nice, but is broken right now. And so I'll cover a little bit more of how you could use this once it actually works. But it doesn't quite yet. So what the idea here is I want to add a plugin that will allow you to clone the world, at least locally to where you are, into a separate server. So if you are working on, say, some build, you may want to clone that build into a creative world so that you can actually do the creative things, and then once you leave, you want that to be spun back down because nobody's there anymore. That's sort of the goal. We're not going to get there in this video or the next video or the next video. It's probably going to take a bit. But hopefully we can kind of step towards that goal. And so the first thing we need a command to kind of start doing all of that. That's what the world clone command or clone world command is going to do. I haven't figured out what the name is going to be. We'll see what makes sense. So what ends up happening is we have this blank plugin that's actually getting booted from here in this app.java. Whoa. I need to turn that off. And so there's two things that get called. There is the onEnabled, which says hello Spigot MC, which is just the plugin stuff. And then onDisable, which will be when we shut down our server, it's going to say see you again. This is just a really basic example from Spigot's docs. A lot of this is just straight from that. So there will be links to that. But I've kind of gone and done my own thing. We're using Groovy. And specifically, we're using Gradle to build. I have Spock unit tests instead of JUnit tests. Spock is built on top of Groovy and does some nicer things, in my opinion, than traditional JUnit tests. And I'm using Docker. So there's a whole bunch of weird stuff that goes on. You might have seen in my build.gradle this monstrosity, which is actually invoking Docker from a Gradle command. Yeah, it seems like a good idea, and I'm not entirely sure what this is doing, the whole way this server works. I'm kind of setting all this up because otherwise this isn't going to make a lot of sense. But the way this works is after a build, so we're depending on our build, that's going to actually pull down a Minecraft Docker image. I've covered how to run Docker or Minecraft in Docker before. We're using that same thing here so that we can actually mount our plugin inside of that Docker image. And then we actually just run a Docker server on this with our plugin installed. And this way, every single time we rerun our server, we get a brand new server that has our plugin installed. So if we've done anything crazy to kind of set up our server or whatever, or we've corrupted something or it doesn't upgrade great, that should be fixed here. This will allow us to get a new server every single time, which means every time I restart this, you're going to see a new world. This one won't exist. So that's sort of how this works. There's a few other things I could print it out, but that's mostly all you need to know. And then it tries to clean it up. That's broken right now, so you're going to see a bunch of build failures. For whatever reason, it can't stop the image. So the way it's supposed to work is that I can hit enter here, and it's supposed to shut down the server. But it didn't. I'm still here. And so we actually have to do that manually, unfortunately. That's one of the broken bits. And so the easiest way to do that is to just grab the hash and do a docker stop and give it the hash. And that is actually just going to tell Docker to stop that. The Docker image is run with the rm command, which means it automatically gets removed afterwards. So you're not going to end up with a whole bunch of these extra containers just lying around. And the cool thing is This should work as long as you have Java, Gradle, and Docker installed. You should be able to run this. So that was sort of the goal, is to make it as simple as possible. I don't know if I accomplished that, but we tried. It probably made it more complicated, to be completely honest, at least right now. So we want a custom command. The way you do that is you set up this fancy plugin.yml file, and you actually need to add some commands. So we want to do that, which is just going to be a list of commands. And so we need to give it some sort of name. This name is actually going to be the name of the class that we're actually creating. And so it does kind of matter. In this case, we're going to call it the, good question. Let's call it the clone world command. And so this is just the name of the command. The class, in the Java class, should mirror this. So we're going to need a clone world command Java class. And then we just need some extra stuff. And I need to look at their docs quick to see what this is going to do. Description. I'm not going to add anything for this right now. Does it actually? Oh, well, that's cool. There's documentation on this. So it's actually pulling in docs on this YAML file. How is it? I don't know how it's doing that. Wherever this magic is coming from, it's awesome. But I don't know where it's coming from. And then aliases is the final thing. Aliases are extra ways to invoke a command. So like delete and remove, for example, might be aliases to both delete a specific block. But you can use those as just extra ways to do this. I'm not entirely sure what the best way to do it is. Also, I don't know how to specify the name of the command. This was a poor strategy. Anyway, description, clone the world into a new server. Sure, usage. This is YAML, so these quotes aren't actually required. You can see I've skipped them up above. I feel like we want them just because when we have spaces, YAML gets weird, and I don't know. I just prefer them, and this should work the same. So what I'm telling this here is giving it a description of what the command is going to do. We should give an example. I got kicked out of the server because of reasons. So let's cancel that, go to a single player world, and just open up new world. I know what I'm doing. And so basically what this is going to do is give us the autocomplete for our commands. And so like we have this command, we can have some extra parameters to it to actually control what's going on inside of that command. In this case, I don't think we need them. Did I just... Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. I'm generating a new world. Anyway, we have clone world command. We also want world clone. One thing to keep in mind with aliases, I believe it's an array. There we go. And two, not only is it an array, but these are also going to be added to the autocomplete. And so that means when we start typing commands, oh, I remember what this world is. That it's massive. So there's this fill command, for example, which is going to fill something. Well, that doesn't work. There. And so if I type in /fill and then ask for a description, it's going to give me all this extra stuff about what we can do and what's going on. That all is there as just sort of like helpers to give you extra stuff to do. Those are extra arguments, I guess you could pass in. If we start adding a bunch of aliases, what's going to happen is this autocomplete list that I can see here is going to have a whole bunch of extra things added to it. And so every single one we add is going to be another thing in this list. So if we add 20, people aren't going to be super thrilled because we're just going to be spamming a single command. Then there's just going to be conflicts and it's not going to be fun. So the idea is we don't do that. Let's get out of there. That's just an example world as a way to show that. So we have our command. I'm pretty sure based on their documents, they just write /command and put it in the brackets. I don't think they want us to do that. I'm pretty sure they want us to write clone world. Pretty sure. So that's what I'm going to guess, but we're going to find out. And so we have these. You can either do clone world or world clone. Both should work. And then we need to create this Java class. So we have Java world of zero spigot blank plugin. I should rename the blank plugin because it's not going to be blank anymore. But we are going to create a clone world command.java. And so this is empty. And what we need is some sort of way to do commands. So let's do a public clone world command, which is going to extend the command. Command doesn't exist. So we need to pull that in. Actually, that's because it's not that. We need to implement the command executor. There we go. I actually have notes, and I didn't note the namespace. Public class, that might help. There we go. There. All right. So we're going to import that from the bucket.command namespace. Namespace. This isn't C#. Package. This is Java. These are packages. And so we have this. We should add our thing to a package as well, to our plugins package. So we are just going to copy it from the other one we have. When you have a package, when you're doing Java stuff, the package should be the first line of your file. And also, because this is Java, the name of your class and the name of your file need to match. If they don't, it's going to fail to compile. And I guess I can demonstrate that. We can just do commands. I guess that should work. And so if we do a Gradle build, all the normal Gradle stuff still works. It's just going to build the plugin and then not run it for you. The Gradle Minecraft command or task is a special task that I've written to actually do this. And we can see we have a compile error up here. Class clone world commands is public, should be declared in a file named clone world commands. So we just do that, and then everything should be happy. It doesn't like it because we haven't implemented this on command thing. This is the actual thing that's going to be invoked. This is what happens when that command gets called. And so there is a whole bunch of stuff. The command sender is what's sending your command. The command is information about the command. Label is the name of the command. And then the string arguments are those extra arguments. There is a command.getName, which also returns the name of the command, just like label, but they are different. So if you run this command.getName, it's going to return the name of the command, which is going to always be the same thing, regardless of if you used an alias or not. It's going to return clone world command. But if you use label, if you use an alias, it will be different, which could mean that you could have things behave slightly differently with aliases or not. I wouldn't recommend that, but you could probably get away with some shenanigans. So anyway, that's sort of what's going on here. What we want to do is, that's a good question. Let's send something back. So let's do sender.sendMessage. This is just going to send something back as a message to whoever invoked it. Creating new server. Please be patient. So the downside of creating a new Minecraft server every time you do this is it turns out that is actually kind of slow. I think the startup time for this Docker image when we're creating a new world is like 30 seconds to a minute, which isn't great, but it works. The other part we need to do is actually return true, which is going to say that this command actually succeeded. Returns true if valid command, otherwise false. That's neat that there's actual documentation. I always appreciate that. I'm not used to my stuff being documented. That's never the case. Too much Unity stuff. Anyway, well, Unity and shaders. But this should be enough to get our command working. As long as our plugin is linked to this, everything should work. So we should be able to do a build and see this work. And it will compile, hopefully. While we're doing that, I have a really quick example of a Spigot test. I've done a video on this a while back. Spigot tests are nice because they kind of look nice. It's Groovy, so Groovy is a very accepting language. It lets you do a lot of things that you would never be able to do in Java or C# or a lot of those other languages. And so this is actually creating like a table for tests. We don't have anything we can really test right now because all of this is like internal stuff. But as we move forward, we'll be able to actually start implementing a lot of those tests. So now that we have built it, everything seems to be working. Let's do a Gradle Minecraft. This is going to start a new server, and it's going to give us the link to the logs. We can just grab that second one, and it also gives us a link to the server. You can pass in an optional port to host it on a different port, but I'm just using the default, which will use Minecraft's default server. And we can kind of watch this setup. Error, this build is outdated. That's fine. That's just the way this works. It needs to set up the full server every time, which means it's regenerating the terrain, doing all that other stuff. And the world should be totally different. This doesn't take super long, but it is probably the slowest. And I think regardless of what you do, even if we're reusing a server, starting a new server or starting a server in general is just really slow. Just because you're starting a server, which it means it needs to load all the chunks, load all the save stuff, or in this case, generate all the save stuff, it just takes a time. So it's relatively quick, but it is probably the slowest. So this should get us our command. This should be enough for us to actually do this. Once we see this hello Spigot MC, we'll see that it's actually initialized. And hopefully it will show us some extra enabling blank plugin. Hello Spigot MC. I think we're good. So we should be able to jump into multiplayer, go to our local test server, join it. You can see in the logs that we are joining. We're in a jungle now, it looks like. Cool. And so if we do world clone and actually complete it, there we go. Clone world. What do I have it sending back? Creating new server. Okay. Why didn't it send us a message? We want clone. Oh, well, that's unfortunate. That's a gross name. It's not sending us back a message. That's not good. We want it to send us something. For some reason, it's echoing out the command that we're sending it. But I would expect it to send this back to us. So the sender should be our information. This should be information about who's sending the command. If we look at the docs for this, it will say, entry for this command will be sent to the player. All right, it sends usage information if we return false. That isn't actually useful at all. So why didn't this work? We're overwriting it. We're doing all this other fun stuff, sending back our message, but we're echoing the output instead. So I guess this is sort of a success and a fail, because it is working. We did get our new commands, but those commands aren't being invoked here. We're not actually seeing them, or we're not actually invoking this command. It doesn't appear. Because of the way this whole thing is working, we can't debug this much. That's one of the disadvantages of the way I have this set up. Even if we were using this as something else, I don't think we could debug it. I'm not sure. So I think the best, or the next best step is one, to stop this. So we're going to do docker stop. For whatever reason, I copied an A onto my clipboard. There we go. And so you just need to give it the hash, or in this case, the partial hash, which is the first 12 characters of the hash. I want to say 12. It could be 10. I didn't count. And so that will cause it to go away and be gone. And so everything should be good. We can see if there's anything left by just doing a docker ps. That will show us all the remaining running containers. There isn't anything. If I hit enter, that progresses our build, which fails because we can't stop the container because it's broken. So let's do system out, print line, hello Minecraft Spigot commands. And so that should output that. Clone world command, clone world command. I feel like that lines up. Huh. Well, my notes say this should work. So we're gonna try it again. Let's see here. If we run this, we should at least see if we end up hitting our command, we should see something get printed out to standard out, which should mean it will end up in our logs. Unless I've completely misunderstood how to do logging in Spigot, but I don't think I have. This should print something somewhere. And since we're attached to our standard out, it may not be formatted correctly or whatever, but it should end up in the logs. And that's sort of all we need. So hopefully that works. But I'm suspecting we might not see it. And if we don't see it, I'm not entirely sure how to fix it. I think that's the hardest part. Do we need to, did I miss something? Do we need to attach this? No, I don't think so. Huh, we'll see. All right, so that's how they actually are supposed to log. Getlogger.info. I didn't do that. That's just going to use probably this format, which is going to have a server timestamp, it looks like. No, that's a UTC. Yeah, UTC timestamp, and then the thread, the type of, like, these are info messages, and then what the log was. So that might be a better, more appropriate way of logging, but we should be able to attach to this now and actually get this working. This is the wrong server. Let's see. Local test server. There we go. For whatever reason, it flipped them. Maybe I flipped them. We have another new world. Now we're on a beach. So let's do world clone. Issued server command world clone. I see no output. All right, I'm going to go and try to figure out what's going on here because this doesn't look right. We should be seeing our commands being registered or being invoked, and that's clearly not happening. We're seeing them being passed into our server, but I'm pretty sure if I run a test, we're going to get unknown command. The only reason we're not is because our plugin works, but the logs are the same for both of those. The only difference is that one is recognized because of that plugin.yml and the other one isn't. So we need to make that actually connect to our class so it's being invoked. So I am going to go figure out why that isn't working and be right back. I figured it out. We are in a new world now. We're in a birch forest, it looks like. And if I run world clone, we get creating new server, please be patient. And we also, it looks like, have piped our standard output through the default logger, which means that when we write to standard out, instead of it going directly to our console, it's actually going into that custom logger, which is causing it to also have all this extra information. It looks like the default printout is an info statement, but that's still pretty handy that we can actually just write out to that. What I had forgotten is this. We need to actually register every one of our executors with the command that it is executing. And so the way you do that is you create some reference to this, and then you do this.get command and get the name of the command. This needs to match the plugin. So we're matching this to this, not to this string. So those two strings need to match. And then from there, we are setting the executor to the class we created, which should mean that I can't do that, but I can do F2, clone world command executor. And so that should rename it. It will also rename my file. And that means they don't match anymore. But they should still work. I need to kill this. That didn't work. I mean, I kind of knew that wasn't going to work, but it didn't work. So we need to stop our server. I should point out every single time that I'm running this, we are getting a different hash for this container because it's a brand new everything. So everything is different. The name is different. Everything is different. So I can't just keep reusing these stop and log commands. I have to actually use the new one that I'm getting, which is slightly clunky, but a little bit nice at the same time. Personally, for me, I prefer having everything be brand new. That's just the way that works. So this should still work. What I'm hoping to point out here is that we can actually change the names of things and that will actually work, which I think is different than what I said previously. But I've never tried this either. I've always matched them. Granted, I've only done this one other time, which we'll see. So once we get this working, we will actually have a command that is actually being executed by people that want on the server. We haven't specified any permissions or anything like that. You can do that if you want. There are extra things here, I believe. It might even be, permission. So we can add permissions, and we should also be able to have usage. Oh, that's what's, what am, okay. I totally screwed up. Usage. Usage isn't for this. What am I doing? Usage is the usage of the command. So when I write usage here, the reason it was printing out /clone world was because the usage was /clone world, and we didn't have it configured, so it was failing and printing us out the usage because it was returning the default. That's why I got so confused. That explains so much. Okay. So now that I'm not confused, and you're probably confused, we're in a great spot. So hopefully we can see that our plugin has initialized, so we should be able to connect after we get kicked out of our server. Here we go. Now we're in Spruce Forest. Let's do a world clone. Creating new server, please be patient, and we get our log message. So everything's good. So we can name that executor whatever we want. Perfect. Awesome. So I think that's pretty much all I wanted to cover here. We created our new command. We got it running. We can do things with it. And that's, I think, probably the only like Minecraft-y thing that this plugin is actually going to need to do. The general idea is once we do this, we're going to spin up some extra thread that is going to copy parts of the world, probably not the entire world, because for large servers, that's probably not a great idea. I'm hoping we can just do like a local part and not break everything. And then it will spin up a separate Docker server. So anywhere you have the ability to run Docker servers, this will be able to host a new server there. So you can host it in the cloud or on a separate PC or whatever. And then you can just run this command and the person will get that. And then after they leave it for like, say, 15 minutes, the server will just automatically delete itself and everything will be good. So you can just kind of test your stuff. That's the general idea. We'll get there. This is the first, I think, actual like Minecraft plugin I've written, except for like explorations like 5 years ago. So we'll see where this goes. There's a few things that I can see like trying to do, and one of the things that I kind of want to focus on here is making it really nice to actually create these kind of things. And so getting like dependency injection for these commands would be really handy. So we can actually invert the control here and move this into some @command blah, and like write this instead. I feel like that would be a lot easier. And then just have it automatically register. And we can set that up, I think. But I'm not entirely sure, so we'll see. But I guess depending on what you want to see and where this ends up going, we'll do what makes sense. But that's it for this video, I think. So until next time, see you, internet.